Okay.
I just can't. What's her name?
All right, here we go. Late night happy hour. Law and Sporter. Justin's looking up a story right now. We got to get to the latest Olympian who's in trouble for some sort of positive drug test. We'll get to that. What's going on tonight?
Oh man, that's wild and crazy times in the NCAA, and I'm here for it, man. I want to see every part of it. I want to see all the crazy endorsements. The endorsements. I think there's going to be a lot of endorsements that are connected to social media and audiences there that have nothing to do with, your sports acumen.
Right.
I think you're going to see. I forget her name, but UNLV had a women's basketball player recently. Do you remember her name? That had a ton of followers on social media.
They had two of them. They had the Gonzalez twins.
There you go.
Have about 2 million Instagram followers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, the marketing opportunities that are presented there, you got 2 million followers on Instagram. Does it really matter how they perform on the field?
Right.
So yeah, here's one as well. Yeah. So Fresno State basketball players.
Yeah, here's a prime example. This is the White Gonzalez twins. The Cavenders. I didn't look up both of them. I know. Oh, there it says right there. 645,000 followers across TikTok and Instagram. They're at Fresno State, and they've got deals now with Boost Mobile and 6 Star Nutrition.
It's awesome. I love it, man. I love it. I saw one of the football players. He had been voted on the team as having the dirtiest locker, and he just got an endorsement deal with 1-800-GOT-JUNK. it's perfect. Way. I love it. Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Great. Some of the deals. Dan Luss, one of our friends who's a legal insider out of New York, he had this one with the Cavender twins. Let's see if I can punch up the next one. Hold on. Let's see. Jackson State defensive end Antoine Owen, NIL deal at midnight. He signed a deal with Three Kings Grooming, a black-owned hair product shop. Okay.
Great. Love it.
Let's see. Next one. De'Ara King already has a couple. He signed a deal with College Hunks Hauling Junk. The deal will net $20,000. Now, here's what's interesting about De'Ara King. What I heard today, and I don't know that anyone's reported this, but first of all, every state has different rules, and there's conference rules, and then there's some NCAA rules, and right now it's very chaotic. Most schools would like, Justin, for you to not sign a deal with someone with someone who's against someone you already have a deal with. This, I think, is going to be like the first big problem. So if De'Ara King signs with a local, maybe it's a local Toyota dealer, and there's another local Toyota dealer that sponsors Miami, how does this play out? Because if the school comes down on De'Ara King and says you can't do that, King could be cooperative, but he could also say, F you, like, I'd like to challenge this in court. So I think you're going to have all these mini situations where players are like, no. Wait, I can do whatever I want. I was told the school does not have any right over me in terms of who I can sign with.
No, incorrect, right? They were told that the NCAA has no rights to limit what they do because that's an antitrust violation because they have a monopoly. Specific teams do not have monopolies. And so the argument would be that if Miami makes rules that say you cannot sign an endorsement deal that is a competitor of a team deal, that the open market will then dictate that the good players don't go to that school, or the marketable players. Let's stop using the word good because marketable doesn't always equal good, right? The marketable players won't go there. So I think the Supreme Court has been quite clear, actually, that conferences and teams can make up their own rules. They can. Right. I saw BYU has already said no alcoholic beverages, no adult entertainment, no illegal drugs, and no coffee. You can't endorse coffee. Yep. And that's their right. They could do that. And
by the way, but then it is also your right. It's your right to leave, right? And then I wonder how that plays into. Isn't this going to affect the transfer rule? Which, essentially, it seems like this was a one-time transfer deal with immediate eligibility. What happens if you're at your second stop and now you're going nose to nose with the school over, hey, I want a coffee company to sponsor me, and you're saying they can't do it?
Yeah, I wonder what the NCAA will do on that, right? I think there is, I think a likelihood that there could be this one-time transfer deal that could go into place after the teams have established their rules. But at the same time, I think the NCAA would not want the chaos that would happen with that, right? That would open that up. So I guess I would talk myself out of that position if I were the NCAA and not do that and say, listen, if you want to transfer based on the NIL rules, you got to go through the normal transfer process, and that's just how it's going to be. We're not going to allow you to transfer based on NIL. So I mean, yes, the first groups of these are going to have a hard time if their school comes down harsh on their rules, and they'll have to transfer accordingly. But this is only going to get better as kids get out of high school. Now they get, teams and conferences can show those potential recruits, here's our NIL policy, and here's what we're going to stick with. And if it's athlete friendly, then I think they're going to do better. So I did see there's been a couple other ones too, like Arkansas's, the state,
right.
Their state law says that you cannot use any of school colors in your endorsements. So you can't wear the uniform, and you can't even use the colors. Okay. I just don't understand why those states think that is better for their schools to be limiting in that way. I don't know why that's better. I think if a player thinks they can maximize marketing opportunities at my school, I think that I'm going to get better recruits.
Yeah.
So I don't understand the limiting. I understand BYU's. I mean, BYU's got a code of conduct that everybody has to adhere to when they go to that school. It's a religious-based school. Their code is a big deal to them. I get why they would do the restriction, but I don't know. The state
don't most schools, they have a licensing agreement with a broadcast / sales entity that they not only handle the broadcast, and really the big company is Learfield, and IMG is another big company. And once they sign up with those companies handle the broadcast, but they also handle a lot of the sales in the stadium. And the arenas, and so they kind of have a right to those names. And I think there's going to be a battle over. I mean, this is serious with De'Ara King from Miami, and say like Spencer Rattler, right? I'll show you the Spencer Rattler logo that he's already come out with. He's the quarterback at Oklahoma. When they do endorsements or say they make an appearance, right now, I'm not exactly sure that they can go out and say, "Hey, come get an autograph from De'Ara King, Miami Hurricanes quarterback." They might not actually be able to say that. Spencer Rattler, Oklahoma quarterback. For now, they might have to say just college football quarterback Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, I have to think about that. I mean, certainly, the team has its own naming rights, and those can't be violated either. It's for commercial enterprise and not for a news story. So, yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah,
I think that's right. That they wouldn't be able to limit it.
Now, right now, as you described in Nevada, like there may be some school rules, and from what I've heard, UNLV is going to try to have some direction on this. But as we suggested yesterday, there may be some internal struggles where it's like, hey, football player X has signed up with this dispensary, let's go. And then the school may come down and say, hey, we don't want, our players pushing these kinds of products, strip clubs and liquor and dispensaries. And that's going to be interesting at every single school to hash that out.
Yeah, for sure. And, obviously a school centered in Las Vegas is going to have maybe some additional challenges if they choose to see it that way. I mean, do they really think that the students at that school aren't using those products and aren't going to those places? Really? Do you think that that's the culture that exists in this town and at that college? Because I don't. So I don't know. From my perspective, I would be a free market guy on this. I would try to be as friendly as I possibly could. I would try to get UNLV to get the leg up on everybody. I would push these rules to the absolute maximum. If I was a school, I would push these academic incentive rules that just came down, and I would push those to the limit. I would go all the way. I'd let them endorse whatever they wanted. I would.
Have you thought about how far they can stretch the academic stuff?
I think they go, well, let's say in theory they could go very far, but I think the Supreme Court provided enough instruction and direction to the NCAA and the lower court for the NCAA to have some comfort in doing some reasonable guidelines that they want to put up. So yeah, but I mean, academic awards and money prizes and postgraduate scholarships and endless tutors and you want to create some sort of academic center that's just crazy. Yeah, right. I think free graduate school for sure. As long as it's academic based.
Yeah, that's crazy. The possibilities are endless. I really like the last day and a half. I keep seeing stuff, and I'm like, man, I haven't even thought of that. What about this one? Can't boosters just make up a business and give kids money? College hunks hauling junk sounds like one. I guess my question on this is, who oversees that, and who would tell them, hey, we've discovered that's a fake company?
Yeah, I guess it would be the team or the NCAA, but I'll tell you, in their temporary guidelines, there has not been any sort of direction on that. I think they could say, in the spirit of the rule, it's assumed that any name, image, and likeness and the marketing and the right of publicity of that athlete is being pursued in good faith and is not intended to skirt around the restrictions on athletic compensation. And if they are, then it's a violation. I mean, I think that's reasonable. I think it's reasonable to say if the boosters are just handing out. But let's be honest. The boosters didn't get a bunch of money by not owning some businesses, right? Like, all these boosters are going to own some businesses or have some endeavors that they can, if they want to give those kids money, they can do it, right? That's going to be there. You're on mute.
Sorry, I was choking there. Brady says it was Shark Tank company, the college hunks.
Okay.
Think about this from the business standpoint. If you're a young business, age wise, and from your owners and maturity, this is a great thing to latch onto. Like the first couple of weeks, how many times is this company going to get its name mentioned because it's jumping right out in front? And the other, I would think the smart thing to do, if I were going to advertise, say in the Big 12, whoever had the college hunks deal, wouldn't you just pick someone from every school so that each school wouldn't snitch on the other school, and then the conference is like, well, every school has one deal.
I guess so. I mean, I guess that goes that way, but I don't know. I don't know what's ultimately going to happen. I mean, I think that there's enough legitimate businesses out there that legitimately want these college students, college athletes to endorse their products, that it is a whole new area of marketing that many of these businesses don't traditionally have access to, meaning through social media and
right.
As influencers that way. I mean, if there was a top line, college athlete here right now that I thought was super marketable, would I look into doing it for Battleborn? Yeah, I mean, why not? It's cutting edge stuff, man.
We're gonna have a discussion. You and I are gonna have a discussion.
We got somebody
about no. Well, there's some things to talk about. This is an SI daily cover, as they call it. Now, obviously, they're doing this for effect. I don't think they're making a statement of opinion here, because I saw some people freaking out about this. Like, how come we don't do that to the coaches and owners of major league sports? And What do you think of this cover here? Kind of provoking, right? Or provocative with the mind and the.
I guess so. It makes it seem like, I mean, the impression I get when I look at it is they're trying to portray that there's maybe going to be a shift in what motivates players to play.
Yep. Yeah, when we talked to Curtis Terry today, who played for UNLV, we were asking him about potential problems, and he was saying, you know, on a basketball team, you could have a rift where, you know, some of the guys are making more money than others, and basketball can be it's a team sport, but it can be a very individual sport, you know, so like you can see a player being like, hey, I like to pass the ball, but guess what? Assists don't get me the money. I need to score more, and there could be some selfishness, and it could be a thing that the coach has to manage in game and around the program if some players are getting money and others aren't.
Totally. I mean, well, get ready for, you know, that's very similar to what the management of egos you got to do on the pro level too, right? I mean, and let's face it, that's the case at the high school level. I'm not going to get the scholarship offers. If I'm passing the ball too much and I'm not shooting, I got to be the player so I can get they were doing the same thing in high school in order to make sure that they got the scholarships. There's always going to be a clashing of team first versus me first in teams, all team sports, but until and even including the pro sports. So I don't know.
How about this one? Do you think it's going to help the disparity between schools and college athletics or widen the gap?
The disparity between like the haves and the have-nots?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think in my perfect world, you know, in the chaos reigns supreme in the NCAA, this turns into the haves opt out of the NCAA. NCAA sort of crumbles and they develop their own conference, their own rules, and the whole rules are like free market, go for it. And then there's another tier or maybe two other tiers or three other tiers of organizations, and it becomes sort of a truly tiered collegiate system. And at the very top of the tier, it's the best athletes making the most money, and it's almost semi-pro. Just because I think while the NCAA originated under some well-intentioned rules, it has violated the spirit and intent of its creation for the better part of 50 years now. And so I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see it backed in a corner and bloodied. And, you know, I would love to see the knock. I think it deserves it. It's so bureaucratic and so twisted, and its moral compass is so bent that I really don't believe that it provides for any sort of positive development of young men and women anymore. I don't think I don't think it achieves that. I think the individual schools do and the sports do, but the NCAA does not.
Can you see Uncle Pecos question here? Can you see an issue with Title IX?
Oh, absolutely. There's an issue with Title IX, right? I mean, not in the NIL specifically. In the second ruling on the education-related expenses, I do see a Title IX. So there's sort of, as the Supreme Court has laid out, there's sort of three buckets right now of what constitutes compensation for a student athlete. Number one is name, image, and likeness. Has nothing to do with athletics, has nothing to do with education. It is the right of an individual to exercise their individual rights to publish their name, image, and likeness. And like we just talked about, it has to do more with marketability necessarily than performance. There are going to be some people who are marketable or not that great. There's going to be Maria Sharapovas of the world. And then there's going to be some that are marketable and awesome. There's going to be some Serena Williams of the world. That's one bucket. The second bucket is athletic compensation. There, the Supreme Court has said you do have the right. No, actually, the Supreme Court didn't address it because it wasn't appealed. But the highest court that heard it said the NCAA does have the right to limit and restrict athletic-related compensation. So that means athletic scholarships. That means like bowl game prizes and any sort of athletic awards, monetary or otherwise. It has to go with athletic pay. So not being paid by a pro sports team or an amateur sports team or a semi-pro sports team. No compensation related to their athletic endeavors. So that's going to stay. And then the third bucket is the education-related expenses. Well, Title IX is not specific to athletics, and it's not specific to education. What it has said is that in the university setting, that you must treat women equally to how you treat men. Now, we often hear about Title IX in the pursuit of athletics because it so shook the tree of the NCAA about how we are going to make sure this is equal, make sure we offer the equal number of scholarships, make sure there's equal number of people being involved. So, but that's not it. They have to be equal in education too. So if the team or if the universities throw a whole bunch of educational awards and scholarships and everything towards the revenue generating sports, men's basketball and football, and does not have any sort of similar system for the women's sports, then you're going to have a Title IX violation.
Interesting. Did you see that Barstool's trying to get into the game?
I did not see that.
Yeah, they signed up a female volleyball player from, I think, Jackson State, and then a lineman, a defensive tackle at Stanford. I'm not sure why. I can see why with their brand with Jacksonville State. It's a tall blonde athlete. So not to jump to conclusions that Barstool kind of slings piggishness and piggery, but it would seem to be on brand. Did I say Jacksonville? I said Jackson State. Yeah, Jacksonville State, which is in what is that? Florida, or is that Alabama? Where the hell is it? Jacksonville, Alabama. Huh.
Jacksonville, Alabama.
Yeah.
There we go.
Let's see. Good.
I was going to say, I don't know that Barstool's going to do anything wrong or right about this. My only concern, the only thing I want to make sure is looked out for is to hopefully each of the universities has some resources available for these student athletes to sort of ensure that they're not taken advantage of. Now, they don't have to. And the whole idea behind name, image, and likeness is I'm an adult. You can't prevent me from pursuing my rights.
Right.
And your right to be an adult is your right to be taken advantage of. Right. Yeah. But
there could be no safety net. And by the way, a lot of people have brought up everyone who's doing this better make sure that they have a tax person.
Oh, right. For sure.
Like now you want to be an adult. These are some of the responsibilities that come with it. There's not going to be a safety net from the school.
But if I'm looking cynically at this, right, like somebody in my position with a law degree could very easily put themselves in the position of being an agent without being the athletic agent and have the first crack at being their agent, right? So I'll be like, listen, I know the tax law. I'll be your tax attorney. I know contract law. I'll ensure that all your marketing contracts protect you and are in compliance with the NCAA. You need me as your, publishing agent, your publicist, and your tax attorney. And then when you turn pro, then I'll be your athletic agent too. We'll bring all of those in-house. And we'll take care of it all at the same time.
I know Lee Steinberg, their company, they signed up someone today. I thought that was really interesting. But like you said, as you described it yesterday, hey, I'm just the marketing arm. I'm the publicity agent.
Yeah, I'm just a publicist. Yeah.
What about Brady's question? This one's really important, and I was trying to get some answers on this today. Do scholarships say you have to wear the brand of the school, or we're going to have Armageddon where it's like, hey, you know what? I can sign a deal with a small sneaker brand, apparel brand, or wear my own and not wear yours during games on the field or on the court.
There's no way that's going to fly, right? The team says you're wearing Nike or Adidas, you're wearing Nike or Adidas. They have the right to determine the uniform and what you're going to wear on. Now, again, free market. You can go somewhere else. Now, if UNLV wants to be ahead of the curve and said, listen, basketball players, tennis players, golfers, if you want to go out there and get a sneaker deal, you can get a sneaker deal, and we're not going to make you wear anything. You have that freedom. We'll have uniforms, but as far as sneakers, you go get that deal, or some other piece of apparel. There's nothing wrong with that. You can certainly do it, and it would be, I think, really far ahead of the curve. I don't think you'll see teams do that because they would lose so much money in not having that endorsement deal themselves.
Yeah, I think the old business, Brady joking here, and I won't have to worry why UNLV basketball players have nice cars randomly. You should be able to do this at every school on the up and up. Now you're not, the school is not supposed to like officially work a deal with whatever their big car sponsor is, but could you do it through an intermediary? Of course you could.
I don't think that there's any specific prohibition about them connecting you, and I don't think you even have to go through an intermediary. You can't have a joint endorsement deal.
Right.
That's all.
Right. Okay. So you're right. You're out there.
So I like
just a buffer so that it's not officially coming from the school.
Right. Well, let's say
separation. It's a separation.
Exactly. Let's use Findlay Toyota, right? If they said, "Hey, we're going to go after this UNLV basketball player. We want to sign him up, and we want him wearing UNLV stuff on the commercial. So we, UNLV and this basketball player, we're going to do a joint marketing deal, and we're going to pay $1 million. And then UNLV says, "Cool. Our portion of that is only $100,000. $900,000 goes to the athlete." That would be, I think, an end around the rules. It would be a pay for play. So as long as, the athlete's deal is separate with Findlay Toyota than the team's deal, they're not dependent on each other, not a joint endorsement deal, then I think you're fine.
My guess is coming out of the gates, they won't be wearing UNLV anything. It'll be maybe the school colors, as you argued earlier, though, or someone maybe, I don't know who was saying it. You might not be able to do that at some places if they don't want to cooperate.
Yeah, Arkansas. That's their state. That's their state law. I don't know why their state legislature did that, but they did. Maybe they're just super protective of that colored pattern for University of Arkansas. I mean, whatever. I don't know. I don't know why they did that, but they did that. I tend to agree with you. You're probably not going to see them wearing school colors, but I also think you're gonna see some schools that are thought provoking on this, and they're gonna push the boundaries. And I hope UNLV is one of them.
I hope so too. See, this is what I'm impressed with. I think this is where there's so many naysayers out there. And by the way, I saw so many people on social media, fans who are just really angry about this. And it's like, man, I don't understand what you're angry about. This reeks of jealousy. It's bad. But I love the fact that there are a bunch of guys who were like, who've been clearly working on this for weeks. So Spencer Rattler, he's a quarterback at Oklahoma. That's whatever. It's debatable, but it's kind of a cool, creative logo, right?
Mm-hmm.
De'Ara King
is okay.
Yeah. De'Ara King's the one to the right with the you can see DK and one, and then Graham Mertz, I think, is the one on the right in the red, and then who is it? Kendall Milton is the one on the bottom. You can't really see as well, but I think this is cool. And to me,
a lot going on that one.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. The fact that kids are thinking, about how to make money, thinking about how to provide in the future, that's a good thing. Because I can't tell you how many former college athletes I talk to who are 10 or 15 years out, and they're like, man, I didn't take advantage of the platform I was on. And I think to me, there's nothing worse than seeing a guy like not really doing well for himself after he played, made millions for the university, played in front of tens of thousands, played in front of millions on TV. And you're like, bro, you had 4 and 5 years around like all those connected, wealthy people at the school, and you didn't take advantage of it. This is awesome. I love that kids are getting aggressive. And even like we put up the, kid, some, walk on end of the bench guy at Illinois who has, some protein powder. Good for you. You're actually thinking about what's coming in the future.
Yep. Yeah. And what's cool about that is just like you said, to pull on that thread a little bit, if there's a smart, sixth man, somebody who knows they're not going to make, the professional league, but they have some, ideas about what they want to do in the future connected to marketing or broadcasting or some sort of publicity, and they could take some deals at some much smaller dollars. And they're not doing it for the dollars, but they're doing it for the experience. You know, under the NCAA rules right now, they couldn't even do it for free if they wanted to, and now they might be able to. You know, they could take try their hand at radio. They could try their hand at doing a TV commercial. They could, see how they can influence on social media in regards to certain products. And they might do it all for free. Good for them. It gives them an opportunity to have sort of an apprenticeship of sorts in some future endeavors. And I'm all for it. I agree with you, like 100%. I think it's all great. I think it's great that these kids are being creative. I think the kids have been thinking about this stuff. They're clearly excited about it. And I'm like I said yesterday on the show, I'm here for it, man. I want to see it all.
How about this one? Because I thought of this one already. When I saw the number, I was like, oh, okay. But Andrew Brandt, who used to work for the Packers, is one of their front office guys, capologist, really smart guy. I think he works at the sports management, like business school, as a professor at Villanova. We've had him on before. He said, heard this happening in NIL regarding a top football program. Flagship radio station will pick 5-star players, and they'll come on for a segment every week of the season and earn $25,000 for the year. Now, this is it's a little short on details. I wonder if the deal is they get $5,000 each. I don't know how many weeks total. It's is it 14 weeks? All of them are coming on like once a day. Once a week. Like there's 5 spots. A daily spot with a different player. But it's creative. This already happens with coaches. This already happens with pro athletes. It already happens with insiders. The great thing on this thread, though, there was one guy who kept going on and on. He's like, "This is ridiculous. It's just money laundering. Sports radio stations don't pay anyone to come on." And immediately, like Mike Golick Sr. jumped on. He's like, "You don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong." And I finally jumped in. I'm like, 5 radio people have told you, dude, you're wrong. People are paid to come on as guests at radio stations because the person couldn't fathom, like, there's no way they're worth that much. They're worth what any advertiser will pay. And if there's a person, now again, my guess is that the people putting up the money are connected to the university, are fans, and it's a vanity play to be tied to whoever. Say it's Ohio State, to be tied to the latest Ohio State quarterback. But this is not abnormal. This is stuff that's already been going on. And now college athletes, not just the coach, can go on, do a spot, and make some money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a similar vanity plate to the coaches that they sponsor the shows for too. Do they absolutely get the dollar for dollar out of what they put in? I don't know, man. I mean, I clearly have never saw that opportunity as being productive for myself. But I didn't go to UNLV, so it's not where I want to. It's not where I look for a vanity plate. Do the advertisers who are on the boards and at the hockey rink for the Golden Knights, do they get dollar for dollar out of there, or is it a little bit of a vanity plate? Is it a little bit of an ego boost? I don't know. I don't have their books. I don't look at their books. Again, it's not something that I pursue because I didn't think it paid out for me. But I'm also, I'm still climbing uphill on this career, and there's some that are towards the end of it, and they're looking to, have a stamp, have a legacy, so it's worth whatever somebody's willing to pay. I agree with you.
By the way, Truth, if you want to explain, maybe I'm misreading this, but you can explain it if I misread it. I'm thinking this is sarcasm, that the athletes are always great interviews too. Can I tell you that the real story behind interviews and when athletes are bad, that's not on the athlete. Mm-hmm. That's on the people around the athlete, and it's also on the radio people. Because I'll guarantee you, if I pick 2 UNLV athletes as my regulars, Justin, do you have confidence in me that they're going to be good?
Yep.
Yeah. You've
been making me good for 10 years.
Well, you're great at it, and you make it easy. But there are ways to do it. First of all, if you had the choice, you don't just. I mean, I gave the example out today. I don't know if people processed it, but we had Tony Sanchez on, who was the former coach of UNLV, and I said to Tony, I go, just from a player management standpoint, if I had come to you and said, "Hey, I have $10,000, and we want Max Gillum, the backup quarterback, on every week as our guest. I'm sorry, I don't want your starting quarterback Armani Rogers on. And I wanted to present it to him like, oh crap, no, I got to tell the starter the backup's getting money and he's not. Well, there's a reason. If I talk to the kids and I know who they are, and this is this is on the flagship station, to not just let any kid on and put him in a bad position. So I hope that didn't come off as angry, but I get annoyed when people are like, well, that kid doesn't know how to do an interview. Well, that's one of the great things about this is whether it's an interview, whether it's doing commercials, whether it's doing social media, and by the way, being grammatically correct, because that's always kind of embarrassing when a kid's in school and he doesn't know how to write. That's on whoever's signing the deal with them and the people around him. You got to make sure you get good people, and then you get them up to snuff so they look good. And again, positive, because they're learning as they go along. They're being adults as they go along. They're learning how to be professionals.
Yeah, they're being exposed to the job market at the same time that a lot of people are getting exposed to the job market for the first time. When I was in school, I was doing internships in line with the kind of work that I wanted to do, and I was paid for those. Some of those I was paid probably more than I was worth. Some of those I was paid less than I was worth. And it was for me about what kind of experience I could get out of it, right? Like, where is this going to lead? Whether or not I'm trying to get in with that actual company, or am I trying to get experience that, I could put on the resume and tell other people I know how to do this stuff. That's how college was for me, both college and law school, the same way. I worked my way through. I had different jobs, different internships, different pay levels. And just because somebody plays a sport does not mean that they should that they shouldn't have the same opportunities. Now, is it right for abuse? I guess it depends on what your definition of abuse is.
Right.
Do some people make more money in an industry than they should because they are pretty, because they have a lot of social media followers, because they're more marketable? Yeah, that happens. That's the real world, right?
Yep.
There's a reason my face isn't on the billboard. You're being
fantastic, but it actually isn't amazing. That's a great self-awareness, because there are so many people in your business who are like, no, this has to be about me. I need to be out there and I have to show off my muscles and have a hammer, or, be in a suit and look all tough. And I don't know, I just find it weird, but maybe their studies have shown, hey, people need to see your face, and, maybe they get some kind of impression off it and they think you're trustworthy. You're tough.
Yeah. I mean, if I was, to be honest with you, if I was, a formal model of some sort and I was super good looking and I thought that, we tested it and it played super well, would I do it? Yeah, of course I would. So, the whole idea that this is going to be abused, I just don't know. I just don't know that there's a standard definition of what that means that everybody can agree upon.
Yeah. I think there's going to be abuse. There has been abuse, but I think it's going to be more above board, and you will be able to examine it a little bit. So, what was the latest comment?
Yeah, that's what I was laughing at.
I think there's a lot of people you can refer to on this one. It's funny. I don't have the list in front of me, but Ari was all mad today because I guess there was some kind of best of list out today, as there are many times, and he's like, what's going on here? I don't see Justin in the best attorneys header, and I'm like, Ari, I don't know, man. I think a lot of the best of list, maybe more advertising rather than honest assessment of best of, so I wouldn't get all wrapped up in it. So I think there's,
I think the whole connotation that it's voted is questionable. Yeah. Who's voting?
Now, Justin does not do this because he's friends with everyone. Let's hear Watkins' opinion on all the TV lawyers around town. Who do you like and dislike? You like most of them.
Man. I don't think that there's nobody, when you say TV lawyers, there's nobody that's a standard household name that I dislike.
Right.
Like, that I personally dislike? No.
Hey, there's no bigger TV lawyer in town and good looking guy, and I'm saying borderline. Don't tell him. I hope that's not offensive, but Matt does a good job on the NBC affiliate locally, and he's a good looking guy. He's a TV lawyer.
Who's this?
Matthew Hoffman. Matt.
You're talking about my party. Yeah. I was like, where are you going with this? I'm like, who am I supposed to know what you're talking about? Oh, yeah. I mean,
Your better half.
certainly. Hey, man, I mean, I'm not here to tell you that I pass up marketing opportunities that I think would work to make some sort of stand on this topic. I don't, right? I do what I think works.
Right.
I think our brand works. I think it being faceless is different. I think that's what gives us the ability to compete with people who outspend us by multiples. I think that, doing this show with you and doing the radio show and doing the podcast is something I like. I also think it gives people a true sense of who I am. And I think what Matt does on the news is really good. If I thought something else was going to work, I'd probably do that too. Like I'm not above that. I'm Mark. I got a business to run. I'm going to do what I think works.
Hey, real quick on this before we move on. If you got any questions on NIL, I'm interested, and we're going to keep covering this stuff on the regular show. Brady said, thanks for fixing your billboard at Elkhorn to 95. Okay. I don't know what's going on there. Was there something wrong with it? What happened?
I don't live on that side of town, but Matt does. That's like Matt's exit. And we've had some issues out there.
Oh boy. There's nothing wrong with us busting on Dabo Sweeney from back in 2014. And he doubled down many times saying that back in 2014, he said, as far as paying players, professionalizing college athletes, that's where you lose me. I'll go do something else because there's enough entitlement in this world as it is. Should he be dragged for this? Now,
yes.
7 years later? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's totally reasonable comeuppance, Yeah. If he made his stand, he said what he was going to say, and it happened. And yeah. I'm sure if he gets asked about it, he'll say lots of things have changed, whatever he's going to say. That's fine. I don't think he really needs to quit or anything, but I do think it's fun. I do think it's well-deserved. And, people should take a little victory lap around him. He was one of the people really trying to impede progress for athletes, name, image, likeness, and any other form of compensation. So, yeah. Just take a little victory lap. I like it.
Brady was asking us earlier. So, you know what? I'm all my uniform. I've got all the different sponsors, Spencer Rattler. Well, do you think they would get pissed at the bare minimum if Spencer Rattler on both arms had the MMA fake tattoo of just his logo? Would the school be like, dude, you can't put your logo on your arm. Stop.
They could certainly do that.
Yeah.
Right? There's nothing to prevent the school from having as strict of name, image, and likeness policies as they want. They can absolutely preclude that. Or they could say, if you get actual tattoos, you have to cover them up. You could do that. And again, the question is, why would they do that? Right? Why would they want to put themselves in a position of athletes not wanting to go there because they're too strict in their rules and they can't make as much money because they don't have the same marketing avenues to make money. So it's gonna be interesting where they find that balance, making sure that they still get good recruits, but not having billboards all over people's arms and legs while they're playing sports.
I'm trying to wrap my head around it. You also have to have you're gonna have to have a main connect in the program to players to talk about this, and I wonder. On a basketball staff, the staff is smaller, so I wonder whose responsibility that would be. I don't think it's the coach's responsibility. Football has 900 people in the staff. I actually think that's going to be a new job created, sort of a one, compliance, but two, your marketing person to explain NIL and all the opportunities you could have when you come here, because kids and families and maybe their handler will have a lot of questions, and it's going to annoy the crap out of schools. But you're an idiot if you don't put someone in there who's really good.
You certainly got to have some orientation. Here's our NIL rules. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. Here's our resource center for connecting you to potential sponsors. Here's how we advise you make connections, communicate with potential sponsors. We have created an email inbox that's a general one that could be directed to you, so you don't have to give out your personal email to all these different people, all those kinds of things, right? You can have them call our our office and we'll direct them to you, so you don't have to give out your phone number, so you don't have, all that would sound great, right? And the more you have that put together, the more the orientation is built up, and it is, signed, sealed, and delivered. It's a turnkey process for the athlete. If I'm the handler or I'm the parent and I get to talk to all these different universities, the first thing I'm saying is, what's your NIL policy, and how are you organizing your athletics department around that?
And let me tell you, if the person answering is like hamana, not good. Not good. Because let me tell you, there's nothing worse than being in a position where you're supposed to be an expert and then you can't answer the questions.
Right. No, I agree. And so, I mean, and it's going to be changing. It's going to be constantly changing, right? Because soon as there's 300 and something competitors. So as soon as they hear of somebody doing something that they hadn't thought of, they'll be like, shoot, we got to put that in there too. Add that to the orientation, add that to the policy, write that up. Oh, we need a person for that. We need a position to fill for that. More resources, more connections, more information. It's exciting.
Yeah. Well, O'Rourke is joking here, kind of being sarcastic or also being kind of true. It in a way, and at a base level, it is what Dr. Fauci was going through, because Fauci's like, I don't have all the answers. It's a fucking virus, and it's like the changes are developing, the info's coming in every day, and with NIL, we're trying to answer questions a day and a half in, and we don't have all the answers, and it's state to state, it's craziness. So, no, I know you weren't joking. That's why I corrected it. So. But I just explained to you why Dr. Fauci was in a weird position, because there is no true expert on a virus that is developing. The news is developing every day.
Yeah, well, I wanted to address Truth from Duluth's last one, saying, if I'm a taxpayer, I don't want to pay for this on the school side. Dude, taxpayers are paying the most exorbitant salaries for coaches, for assistants. I mean, if we're adding a resource center to ensure that we have the highest level recruits, do you really think that that's more expensive than what we're paying for all of these state employees to do the same thing? We got recruiting coordinators, we got recruiting teams, we got the just in football alone, the number of people we have dedicated to recruiting. And you don't think that this is connected to recruiting? It is recruiting. And
in the end, isn't the goal of the state to get both, especially Reno and UNLV, say football, isn't the goal to get both of the athletic programs to be self-sustained and get them off the teat so they can stop asking for money? So if you have to invest a little bit more, and this is going to help get them into another level, get them more bowl money, get them more attendance in their stadiums. Now, if you want to come back and go, I don't trust them, like I'll be honest, I would trust Reno with the money more than UNLV right now. I have a hope that they're getting it together with, Desiree Reed-Francois around until 2026, and Arroyo now with his feet under him. But it's not, I guess, if you told me it was going to be like millions of dollars to get it going, I might be a little leery. But if it's a little bit of an investment to get both of them on their feet on their own, then that's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, the idea that we need that this could get out of control. College athletics is out of control, been out of control for decades. It's just out of control in spending in ways that ensure that that everybody but the athletes participate in how that money comes about, right? So I don't know. I mean, everybody's building new facilities. If a facility is 10 years old, that's too old, right? Like the amount of taxpayer dollars that goes into building stadiums and renovations and improvements and paying the salaries of all the staff and the extra staff and the assistant staff and the recruiting staff and all of those different things. If we are adding positions that help the players and provide resources, it's going to be a drop in the bucket compared to all the spending that's already been taking place over the last couple of decades. It's nothing, minuscule in comparison.
Can I get your take on the big NFL news today? So the Redskins, check that football team, get fined $10 million. The investigation, I guess, is done into all this, the issues around females. A lot of money, but not a whole lot to Dan Snyder. Other problem is, where's the report?
Yeah, that's what I don't like about it. Like,
There were a ton of women who were like, wait a second. And as I saw one person say, Mueller's report on Ray Rice, investigation 96 pages, Ted Wells on Deflategate, not a crime, on Deflategate, 243 pages, Beth Wilkinson report on football team culture, 0 pages. If if the NFL is into full disclosure and making changes, don't we need to see the report, or is there some legal angle that they can't release it immediately?
well, there's no way that if they wanted to release the information to show that they've done a proper investigation, there's absolutely a way in which redactions can, protect any of the women who want to remain anonymous, any of the sources that want to remain anonymous. That can be done. So I have a hard time believing that, we really want to get this report out that we have, but we just can't. I don't buy that. Courts all the time deal with the most serious types of allegations that are able to protect identifying information of people that need to be protected, sources, victims, what have you. So I don't know what in the world happened here, but hearing a number that's 10 million, maybe they thought that was going to be impactful to the public. It's less than the fine for Deflategate, like by a lot, right? Deflategate was $250,000 if memory serves me right, both from the team and personally, right? I think so. Maybe I have my facts wrong. Oh no, that was the I'm sorry. That was the taping. That was Spygate, 250, team and individual. So 10 million just doesn't sound that bad to me. And I would want to, more importantly than what the fine is I want to know what the report says, so that if you're a fan of football, or even if you're not, if you're a victim's rights advocate, you can ensure that they have learned lessons and are making changes so this doesn't happen again. A $10 million fine does not show any level of deterrence on my end. I don't think that. I think it's not meaningful.
I was trying to look at what Brady was saying about it being tax deductible. How do we know that? Because it's going to charity?
It all goes to charity.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Not good. Pro Football Talk essentially sent out a cryptic tweet saying it wasn't so cryptic. As more and more people read and process and react to the NFL's handling of the football team investigation, it's going to take a very bad turn for the league. A long holiday weekend will not operate as a reset button for this one, so that the heat's going to keep coming. And think about it. The last couple of days, and McKinnell sent out a tweet that was pretty good. He said, yesterday, Bill Cosby, today, Dan Snyder and his football team. There's little wonder why women don't come forward about their abuses, not only in America, but across the world. And he just finishes it up with, fuck. It's a disheartening message. And I saw that the woman who was repping the victims, or the alleged victims, the claimants in the football team case, is like, yeah, but this is not satisfying. We need to see the investigation. This fine doesn't mean anything to us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to slightly disagree with Ryan on the Cosby thing. I understand that the greater message taken by victims of sexual assault is that, what's the point in coming forward? He got away with it. But when you look specifically at that case, I think that the district attorney at the time did everything he thought he could do to ensure that the victim got some justice. He did this so that the victim's civil lawsuit could move forward, and the victim did get a $3.5 million settlement in that lawsuit. And it's worth noting that the victim sought civil justice before criminal justice, retained a civil attorney before ever even making a criminal complaint. So in that particular instance, the victim of Bill Cosby, the only victim that was within the criminal statute of limitations, there was only one, right? There was a whole bunch of other victims that got brought into that criminal proceeding from the 80s and 90s, but they were beyond reproach as far as criminal statutes of limitation. And I'm here to have that whole discussion about what statutes of limitations should be in criminal proceedings for things like sexual assault. Most states have lifted them or extended them to 20 or 40 years, depending on different states and circumstances. But I don't think that in the instance of Bill Cosby, that the victim of the alleged sexual assault, the victim of the sexual assault, I mean, we still have a finding of a jury that there was sexual assault, right? It's just that it's procedurally barred. The victim of the sexual assault did find justice. It's ultimately, at the end of the day, it's not the criminal justice that was sought. But so I know what Ryan's trying to say, but I think if victims' rights advocates and victims of sexual assault were to actually dig into the Cosby situation a little bit, they would see why that happened and why it's actually a good legal holding for those who are taken advantage of in this country by police and prosecutors. And that happens all the time. That's real. And they should not be detoured from coming forward based on the result in that case.
Is that a good way to put it from Sir 3255? They tricked him out of his Fifth Amendment right? Or they just outright lied to him, right? They just outright lied.
No, that's not true. No, they didn't trick him. That wasn't the intent. The original DEA who made the public statement that he was not going to be tried and that therefore he couldn't use his Fifth Amendment rights absolutely intended on following through with that, meant it, was not lying to him, was not trying to trick him. When the subsequent DA years later said, I'm going to move forward with the prosecution against Cosby, the previous DA was like, whoa, you can't do that. Sent a letter to the DA, said, we made this public statement. The statement was intended to relieve him of his Fifth Amendment protections and for the purpose of allowing the victim to move forward in civil court and obtain testimony. We can't now change the story. So the subsequent DA just disagreed with the legal precedent, but I don't think they were intended to trick him or to lie to him. But the case does stand for the proposition that the police and the district attorneys cannot lie to accused in order to get them to waive constitutional rights based on the lie. So that's why I think it's a good case. That's why I think it's a good holding.
The RDK says, Justin, do you think it should have been overturned on the prior bad acts evidence?
I don't know. I haven't dug into that case specifically to see what exactly was presented to the jury on that. I mean, I know generally speaking, I know that we brought in prior bad acts, the alleged victims from the 80s and 90s. The standard rule of evidence is prior bad acts are not admissible to prove actions in conformity therewith. That means because he used to be a rapist does not mean that he was a rapist in this instance. You have to prove that he was a rapist in this instance. And it doesn't matter what happened in the past. It doesn't matter what happened in the future. The exception to that is modus operandi or pattern of behavior. This is what he does. And you heard me talk about this in the Deshaun Watson situation where it was very specific, right? Make contact through Instagram, ask for a massage, bring him over to his house, wear a small towel, right? Like there were so many details in each woman's story that translated across that my thought on it was they're going to try to have all these prior cases brought into each subsequent case under the theory of modus operandi. In the Cosby situation, I don't know enough about the underlying cases to say whether or not I agree that the prior bad acts should come in or not under that theory of pattern of behavior. And the Supreme Court decision I read, which was long as heck, did not have to address that question because they ultimately ruled that he couldn't have been tried in the first place.
Rourke says Constitution guarantees due process. Cosby did not get that. DA at fault.
I don't think the DA is at fault.
Okay.
I mean, I don't. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, the victim would not have had any recourse, any civil recourse.
Which DA?
The original DA, Cantor.
Right. Okay. Well, I was thinking it was the DA who then tried to, even against the advice of the original DA, that DA screwed up, which also gets me thinking.
But to that point, though, 2 subsequent courts said that the subsequent DA was correct. So,
yeah.
I mean, it was a toss-up. But go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say is I don't know how you go after the DA. We've talked about this many times. When do these blanket protections against DAs go bye-bye, or would that just crumble the whole system?
Well, I mean, I think that a negligence theory against a DA should not be punishable as a crime. If they've messed up because they weren't good at their jobs, that's one thing. But intentional, gross, reckless behavior, I think should be punishable. And there is precedent for it. It is a law on the books. It does exist. It's just never brought forward, not never, rarely brought forward. So, yeah, I do think that, DAs who hide evidence in order to get a conviction against a person that they know or should know is innocent should, they should have to go to jail. Yeah, I do.
The guy in the making of murder was completely out of control. And he still stands up there and and puffs out his chest, and it's like, this is bullshit, dude.
Yeah,
you violated rights and like you said, suppressed evidence and had information, still move forward because you needed a conviction, and that does happen way too often. I actually asked Xavier Pope this today, and I was kind of being sarcastic, but Brady says can't wait for Cosby to go back ranting against minorities and holier than thou speeches, and I threw it at Xavier. I was like, wouldn't it be amazing if old man Bill Cosby actually, because a lot of the attorneys around the country, and Xavier had the same take you did, it kind of all feels gross, but like for the greater good of the justice system, what they did was wrong. Wouldn't it be amazing if Cosby actually, started almost a defense fund for different people around the country who have been violated like him? And if Xavier fired back, he's like, he's never going to do that.
Right.
But he probably, the son of a bitch probably should. He's got enough money. Like, you're old, dude. Like, do something, the tiniest thing to restore a little bit of your reputation.
Yeah, I wonder what the optics of that would be like, right? You'd have to get a bunch of really good attorneys.
It certainly couldn't be he shouldn't be jumping in on sexual assault cases.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. The optics would be kind of difficult. I don't know that you would find these really talented attorneys that would want to be connected to his name in that way to try to get these people, out on. And let's face it, I think there's enough innocent people that are in our prison system, right now that we need to work on through the Innocence Project and otherwise, that getting people who are guilty out on technicalities is, while it's appropriate and it needs to happen because we need to protect constitutional rights so that innocent people are not convicted, is not going to be as high a priority. It's just not.
So even the Innocent Project, if he stood up there and he's like, I'm giving money to the Innocent Project, banging the table, people would be like, I don't know if we want your money, dickhead. What about this?
I think you would get a lot of that. I think you could get a lot of people saying, like, no.
Can he recoup his money by suing the county?
It's possible. I think you probably won't see him make that claim, and it's sort of a toss-up. And like I said, this wasn't established law. I got to emphasize, what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court held is unique. There was no set precedent for the underlying trial court or the intermediate appellate court to look at and say, no brainer, done deal, established law, we can't allow this case to move forward. They looked at it based on what the precedent that existed, but nothing was directly on point, and so they were making policy, rulings, and not until the Pennsylvania Supreme Court came in did it become definitive. So, in that sense, I think it was sort of a legal toss-up, and to say that, I think you would need to say that the state or the county was going after him on personal grounds and not and moving forward. It would be a malicious prosecution case, that you did it without a legal basis, a factual or legal basis. And they're going to be like, yeah, we had a legal basis. 2 courts agreed with us. So I think it would be kind of tough. And I'm sure Cosby wouldn't want to go through that too. He's getting old. He is old, and he's now out of jail. Like, I think the last thing he wants to see is the inside of a courtroom.
All right, Justin, one last story. I thought this was interesting, digging this up today. Royal Caribbean to require unvaccinated guests sailing from Florida to have COVID-19 insurance. What does this mean?
Yeah, I read this, and I got to be missing something. They're demanding that people carry insurance of $25,000 or $50,000, depending on the cruise line or the trip, to cover medical expenses in case they get COVID. Like, I don't understand that, because if you've got health insurance, then you're covered. But maybe because they're in international waters and they want to be paid, maybe they're going to have medical staff on the boat, and it's for payment to the medical staff. But I must be missing some level of international law and medical care here as to the impediment in getting treatment. And if you have insurance in the States and you're in the Caribbean, and how that works.
Brady saying health insurance doesn't cover outside U.S. or wouldn't cover ships' med crew. I want to ask you, but I'll ask the audience watching. Has anyone looked at cruise rates right now? Or is it like the only affordable vacation, or are there a bunch of people who are like, screw it, man, going on a cruise, and the demand is as high as ever? I would assume they're like at rock bottom right now for the rates. No, anyone have any clue?
Well, the thing about what Brady says is like, so the cruise medical crew is not always covered by health insurance. It's like, do you really want your medical crew treating COVID? Like, I would much rather write a waiver and be like, we don't treat COVID. Like, get out of here. Like, if you got COVID, we're like, we're sending you off the ship. You gotta pay to get off the ship, or you're getting off the next dock, or I don't know what the hell. I don't know how you address that. It looks complicated, but I would not want my medical crew treating COVID. But I guess what's the other viable option? Because if you get to a port and they're like, wait, he's got COVID, like, keep him on the ship. He's not coming in here.
SCR 3255 says, I worked for Royal Caribbean a few years back. You don't want the medical crew treating much of anything.
Yeah, that sounds right. I mean, I've literally never been on a cruise, so I have no idea.
I haven't? Because I was actually going to ask you. Brady said he looked a few weeks back. Wasn't as cheap as I would have guessed. Because right now, I would think it'd be like freaking 65% off. So I guess if you haven't been on a cruise, you don't know about them, then you're not looking to go on one right now, huh?
No, not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah. Hey, so you were. I promise this is the last one. I was talking to you off the air about the Las Vegas locally story that there were some people who think they caught COVID at the VGK game, maybe game 2, game 5, and I was going to say you were lambasting me, but you really weren't. It is interesting what's going on right now. The in general, the positivity rates are going up. So what do you think is happening right now?
I don't know, man. It sounds like the Delta variant and the seasonal changes are starting to happen, and
then we have a lot of people, we've hit the wall on vaccinations, and we're not really getting past 50% for fully vaccinated.
Yep.
So what do you think? What do you think of California floating the notion that mask may be mandatory again indoors? Could we do that?
Certainly, we could. I mean, are people gonna respond to it? I think
that's not the right way. They won't.
I think that's about all you can do I don't think people will tolerate another like partial lockdown and businesses closing and all that stuff. But I do think people will tolerate masks. I mean, I just flew back and forth from New York. Airports are still fully masked.
Yeah.
People didn't seem to mind. It was funny talking to you off the air, and you're like, yeah. Wait, what percent of the people in T-Mobile were wearing masks? Was it, 10, 20, 50%? I'm like 0%. There's nobody wearing a mask. It was the minute they said no mask, man, there's no masks. But I don't know. I was like, when I was in New York, I thought that the mask mandates were still going on at the grocery stores because everybody was wearing masks, but they're not. They were just doing it by choice. People were doing it by choice.
I've been surprised by how many people are still wearing masks at grocery stores because I kind of look around. I wear one. Encouraged is probably not the right word. Oh, we do have to get your take on this real quick. Petro went crazy last night and was talking about kind of I've talked about Big Chicken with the whole chicken sandwich thing over the last 3 years, that it's some big organized effort to just keep, pumping Big Chicken, all the chicken sandwiches at us. Seren unveiled what he thinks may be a giant scam, and it's the LED bulb scam, that they actually don't last any longer than traditional bulbs, but they've raised the prices, double, triple. And he said that he buys the bulbs, he keeps the box, he tapes the receipt to the box, makes sure that that box and receipt are near the different lights, and he tracks it how long they last. And if they don't last 5 or 7 or 10 years, he's actually bringing it back to the store and saying, I want a replacement.
Yeah, damn, good for him, I guess. I mean, that's a lot of work to ensure that you're not ripped off from the bulbs. But I will say this. I don't know if this is true, but I've heard, where did I hear this? I think it was in engineering school, in undergrad, that they can absolutely make light bulbs that last forever.
Oh, really?
That the very first light bulb, Thomas Edison's original light bulb, is still working. It's the filament that they decide to use that breaks down. And so, to Seren's point, absolutely, they can, like, if what I learned and was taught by my professors is true, that they can dial it in and basically ensure that by a certain number of hours, it goes.
Wow. Now, there are disclaimers on the back, or at least, I guess it would say directions of use, saying that like a 5-year bulb, really your max use per day should be 2 hours a day. So if it runs out earlier than that, then you just use the bulb too much.
That's right. Yeah. They're like, well, did you log the hours, Ren? I know you had the box next to the bulb, but were you logging hours?
So it doesn't sound like Justin's jumping on board as an attorney against big lighting, a class action suit. That's not going to happen.
Oh, I bet you it does.
You think it does? You think it will at some point that people are like, these LED bulbs are lying? These companies are.
Yeah. There probably will be. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. All right. Well, that gives some hope. We'll let Seren present his case. I think he wanted to come on tonight and scream and yell about it. I was like, dude, come on. Oh God.
Well, maybe I'll sign him up. He sounds like the perfect class action plaintiff. He's got it all dialed in. Yep. He can prove it. I'm there.
Oh, he's insane. All right, what are you doing for 4th of July weekend?
Heading up to the cabin up in Utah.
Nice.
Visit with the family. Ride some ATVs, light off some fireworks. No, actually, there'll be 0 fireworks up there. You got wildfires and stuff. But the resort puts on some fireworks. What about you?
Barbecue, I guess, party at the house. Small get together. God damn it! Should I mention this part? I mean, for full disclosure, the party was half vaxxed, half unvaxxed. One of the group of unvaxxed is not coming now.
Why?
They just tested positive.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
That's what happens. I mean, it happens if you're vaxxed and unvaxxed, but, hopefully.
When I heard that, I would just throw my hands up. I'm like, all right. I'm not going to tell them what to do. But I would get vaccinated. But you can obviously you can get COVID even if you're vaccinated. There's still a window.
Yeah. No, we had one in my office. She was fully vaccinated, way past the 2 weeks, from the second shot, and she got it. But crazy part is she got it. She was in the office. We had lifted the mask policy. She had been around everybody. We'd happened to have a staff meeting, so literally came into contact with every single person in the office. Her symptoms were about 3 days long, and not a single other person in the office got it.
That's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what they say, right? The vaccinated person's transmission rate is super, super low, less than 1%.
So I guess I don't have to feel bad when I walk upstairs in your building to the studio, and there's generally two people sitting at a reception desk, and I walk by with the mask, and I think they're both looking at me like, "Who is this jabroni?" Like, you never know. You never know.
Yeah. No, we're mask free. I mean, like, who knows? Maybe we'll put the mask back on if things get crazy. I
don't want anyone forced to do it. So I have vacations coming up, so I don't want to freaking screw it up by having to skip out on vacation and not be able to fly somewhere. So, all right, everybody.